So we read about Paul here. I'll start at verse 1, Acts chapter 9. And Saul hadn't become Paul yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest. He's going to get papers. And he desired of him letters to Damascus, to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, be brought, he might bring them back to Jerusalem. In other words, he's going to bring them back to be judged in Jerusalem from Damascus. So here we find Paul, he's really getting the Jewish leaders behind him. So Damascus wasn't a territory that he went to, but he's going out further than his assigned territory that Paul would have been working. But he is bound and determined to stop the growth of the church because he believes it's against the law of Moses and that it is going to stop the Jewish faith from continuing on. So he's going to try to stop it. And in that day, you know, the letters that come from the high priest were very powerful. And when he got it signed off, he had authority to go out and do what he wanted to do. And as he journeyed, I'm in verse 3, he came near Damascus, and suddenly, see God doing suddenlies here, suddenly there shined around him, about him, a light from heaven. And Paul testifies that that light was brighter than the sun. I mean, what was the light? It was the glory of God that was showing all around him. If you go to Acts chapter 26, verse 13, I'll prove that point. And this is Paul. He was testifying before Agrippa and Festus, the governor. And this is part of his testimony. At midday, O king, that would be King Agrippa, I saw in the way a light from heaven above the brightness of the sun. So it was brighter than the sun, shining around about me and them which journeyed with me. And that light was the glory of God, I believe, that was brighter than the sun. Verse 4, and he fell to the earth, and he heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecute thou me? When you persecute the church, you persecute Christ. Because we are his body. We are part of him. And there are those out there that are persecuting, the church and church leaders, members of the church. They're really persecuting Christ. Because Christ said, what you've done to the least of these, in other words, if you give a bottle of water or whatever, you've done it unto me. So when you do something to the body of Christ, you're doing it as unto the Lord. I'll read verse 4 again. And he fell to the earth, and he heard a voice. This is what we're talking about Saul. And he heard a voice saying, Saul, Saul, why persecute thou me? And he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Jesus, whom thou persecute. Because Paul was persecuting the church, he was persecuting Jesus. Do you see that? it is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. If you ever wondered what that really meant, kick against the pricks? Well, if you go back and look up in the original language, it's really talking about, they had a stick, and it was called an ox goad, G-O-A-D, and it had a metal end on it. So when they were moving the oxen around, if they wouldn't move, they took this stick with this sharp point on it, and they stuck the ox. And boy, that got him moving. That got him moving. It's a stick with a pointed or sharp metal end used for driving cattle, like oxen. So basically what the Lord's saying here is, why do I have to keep prodding you to get you to move in the right direction? And you're like a wild ox and not listening. You're pricking up against what I'm trying to do.